Hey everybody, I'm Vera Stewart and welcome to the VeryVera show. You know, this time of year when it gets a little chilly outside, I love to get in the kitchen on the weekend. You know, people think I'm just cooking all the time and between work and being with family, I don't always get to just relax, get my nice cup of hot tea and get in the kitchen and do some of my favorite things. So when it's cold outside, I can't get in the yard, I love to get in the kitchen and do some of my favorite breakfast items. So I'm going to share those with you today. We're going to do a sticky, gooey cinnamon bun, and you know, I know there's lots of folks out there that say I would love to be able to make those myself. We're going to do a classic sausage ball. You may have done these before, but I'm going to show you a new way to do it. And then finally, VeryVera's 4-cheese quiche. For those of you that used to eat with me in the cafe, that was a favorite. We had a different topping every day. I'm going to share that recipe with you today. And then in Vera's Corner, I'm going to show you a way to keep your centerpiece that you use during the holidays on your table all winter long. So let's get started with these cinnamon buns first. It's such an easy recipe, really crisp and gooey. So we're going to get started with the filling first. It has brown sugar, and you know, to me, the best cinnamon buns are the ones that are chocked full of filling. So we're going to add the brown sugar, some granulated sugar, a little bit of table salt, cloves, and cinnamon. I'm just gonna let that just be mixed together and I'll set that aside. You know, the difference in this recipe and the classic cinnamon roll is that this is not a yeast dough. And one of the things that I actually love about it is that you're gonna still get that gooiness and that tenderness in this roll, but it gets crisp on the outside, kind of like a biscuit. So I really hope that you'll try it. All right, so this is pretty much ready to go until I'm putting that on my dough, except for 1 tablespoon of butter. Almost forgot. I've got that warming on my warm feature on this Sub-Zero cooktop that I love because I can just leave it there all day long for every recipe I'm doing with melted butter, and it doesn't get brown and it just stays exactly right. All right, so I'll set that aside. Now I'm going to start on the dough. So the dough is just plain flour. I'm going to add to that baking powder, baking soda, table salt, and sugar. All right, then I'm going to do 3 tablespoons of the melted butter in this recipe. So you know, the neat thing about this is you're not running back and forth to a microwave, which is helpful, especially if it's not close by. And now I'm going to put buttermilk on this, and this is where I love to get every little bit of that. And this just mixes up. One thing about it is because you've got 2 different types of leavenings in there, your baking soda and your baking powder. You want to mix it and get it rolled out pretty much right away because it's going to start acting and using that leavening agent right away. So you want to get it all mixed together and it's just going to form a nice ball. But I went ahead and did one right before we came on. So I'm going to put this aside because I can come back to that in a few minutes and bring the one forward that we're going to work on. Oh, it just looks so great. You know, my days as a home ec teacher, I pretty much know exactly what a 9 by 12 inch square is. So I've rolled it out, I've got my board nice and floured, and now I'm going to put the rest of this butter on top of this rectangle, and I'll kind of spread it a little bit as we go. And then the filling is going to go all the way to the edge with about a 1/2 inch border. So plenty of butter. And now I'm going to put the brown sugar mixture just right dead in the center and just start moving it out with my fingers all the way to the edge. Leave about a 1/2 inch. And you see what I mean about plenty of this delicious sugar filling? And once you've got that done, if you floured your board enough, you can start rolling it and it's not going to stick to the board at all. All right, so I'm gonna keep rolling this, and when we come back from the break, we'll get these in the pan and in my small Wolf tabletop oven, and then we're gonna get started on the sausage balls. So I'm having so much fun. I hope you'll come back and join me in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody, and if you're just joining me, I am getting some freshly grated cheese together, but while we were away during the break, I got those cinnamon buns finished. I had the dough rolled up, and you know, I'm getting 9 out of that to go into a square 9-inch pan. So what I like to do is take my knife and do my scores across to make sure that they're each gonna be the same height. So I did that, cut them, put them into the pan, and then any leftover sugar that was on the cutting board I put on top, then poured that melted butter on, and now they're in a 425-degree oven for approximately 25 minutes, and I'm using my countertop Wolf oven to bake those. So now let's get started on these sausage balls. And the interesting part about this recipe, you know, many times I'll give you a twist to a recipe. Well, this time I'm giving you a twist, I'm getting tongue-tied, a twist to the procedure, because I know that everybody out there has probably made these before, the Bisquick, the sharp cheddar cheese, and the sausage. So the dough hook to your KitchenAid mixer is probably the one feature that you use very little. So this is when this comes in so handy for this particular recipe. So I'm gonna put my mild sausage, my freshly grated cheddar cheese, and I still like to use my, you know, just my regular hand grater for that, but I'm gonna go ahead and get this mixing up. And this is where the recipe is so great, because what you used to do was stand there with your hands doing that forever. So I'm gonna put just a little bit more of this cheese in there while that's going. But you know, just keep that in mind that the dough hook, you know, because it's called a dough hook, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use it for only dough. So what I'm trying to do here is just get this incorporated. So I'm gonna turn it off and just get those sides together. And you know, if you like your sausage balls a little bit hotter, of course you can put the hot sausage in there too, but I just like mild because I've got, you know, family members that don't like it quite as hot. So now I'm gonna start adding the Bisquick to this. Just a few cupful at a time. And you know, the recipe that makes this kind of special for this time of year, you know, today we're talking about wonderful things to have for breakfast during the winter months, but rarely do we eat all of these at breakfast. And then, you know, you think, well, maybe tomorrow everybody won't be here. So this is a great appetizer. You know, back in my catering days, this was something that I did quite a bit as a hot past hors d'oeuvre. And, you know, so many of the old recipes that we used to use years ago are coming back, and this is one of them. So just to give you kind of the point of where I'm trying to get to with this dough, just because we don't have quite that much time on the air, once this is all incorporated, what you want to do is take the dough and, you know, just make your little balls about the size of marbles, a little bit larger than a marble. But what I like to do when I'm doing this is go ahead and put all the dough out on the baking sheet, because you could get started and get halfway through and the next thing you know, you've made them too big or too small. So this recipe will make approximately 50 of these sausage balls. So this is where the young person can get involved. Put the dough out on the cutting board and let them just start pinching pieces of it. And then as a group, you can all get together, because maybe the younger ones cannot do the pinching, but they can certainly make the little balls. All right, so we're gonna get 24 to this pan. These are gonna go into the regular oven. And when we come back from the break, I'm gonna show you in Vera's corner how to do bleached pine cones. So come back with me in just a few minutes.
Vera's Corner is brought to you by Jeff's Sewing and Vacuum.
Don't worry, we're not going to be cleaning today, but we are going to be doing something really fun with rubber gloves, bleach, and pine cones. You know, your favorite tablescape that uses woodsy looking things can really come to life with a bleach pine cone. First of all, gather any type of pine cone you can find, from large to small. Fill a large bucket halfway with 2 parts water to 1 part bleach. Wearing gloves, place the pine cones into the bleach solution. Use a large object like a brick or a durable platter to weigh down the pine cones. Let them soak for 24 to 48 hours, depending on the size. And then dry the pine cones outside for a few days or leave in a 175-degree oven until dry. Display on your table, on your tree, or wherever you see fit. Okay, I'm finishing up cutting up my butter that's going to go in a sauce that we're going to put on top of these delicious sausage bowls that went in the oven just a few minutes ago. All right, so I've got some maple syrup and butter going on top of the stove. I'm just going to add a little bit more butter, a little bit more, slightly. Stir that about a bit. And this is where I love to use the Fresh Markets brand of their maple syrup. As you can see, I've used it quite a bit. Love that in all kinds of recipes, but that's going to be delicious. That's going to be one of the dipping sauces for the sausage balls. And then the other one is really easy too. It's the maple syrup with just some mustard, and you can use whatever kind of mustard you prefer. So I'm just going to mix that together, and this will be the one that I will use if there's any leftover that I'm going to want to use as like an afternoon cocktail hot appetizer. It's going to be great, and I'm going to show you how to reheat those later on in the show. All right, so those 2 sauces are going to be good to go for our sausage balls. So now we're going to get started on the 4-cheese quiche. So for those of you that remember eating lunch with me at VeryVera Cafe, this was absolutely one of the most favorite dishes there, because we did quiche every day. It was always in our display case. And then for lunch, it was quiche of the day with a particular topping on it. So today when we present everything, we're going to actually put some of the toppings so you could almost have like a quiche bar. So we've got Swiss cheese, mozzarella cheese, and just like I did in the sausage cheese balls a minute ago, I love to grate the cheese myself. There's just something fun to me about doing it, plus I think it makes it taste a lot better. And then finally, cheddar cheese. And this is a pre-baked, I buy the Pillsbury brand of pie crust, or you can make your own, and you want to cook that for about 10 minutes. All right, so that's good to go. Now we've got 5 eggs. I'm going to put in ricotta cheese, and then heavy cream. Whisk this together. So it's really very simple, but the wonderful thing about this recipe to me is how well it reheats. And that's one of the secrets I'm going to give you. I'm giving you a secret today because I haven't really shared this quiche recipe very much, but just mixing this together. And again, if you're concerned if this is kind of a deep shell, but if you're using a shell that you don't think is quite deep enough, be sure that you put a sheet pan under your pie pan before you put that in the oven. So if it does spill over, you're not going to have a mess to clean up. All right, so before I pour that in, I'm going to take just a little bit of my tri-colored pepper. And you know, there's no reason why, too, you couldn't add other things to this recipe if you didn't want to do it as a topping, if you wanted to do it just as a regular quiche all in one. That's where you can put in your cut up onions or your bell peppers or your ham, whatever your preference is there. So this just gets poured over, really nice thick custard. And then this is going to bake for somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 minutes. And you just want to, it's going to puff up really pretty in the center. and then it's going to kind of fall a little bit when you take it out of the oven. But if you'll insert a knife in it, when you think it's done, if it comes out clean, then it's ready to go. All right, this is going to go in the oven, and when we come back from the break, my favorite part is putting it all together, getting my cup of hot tea, and getting ready for some breakfast gathering with you in just a few minutes. So come back with me. Welcome back, everybody, and you know what? There's nothing like a winter morning breakfast, and certainly I hope you are seeing something at least you might want to try. And as always, our recipes are available at VeryVera.com, and we are on now these delicious cinnamon rolls and the glaze that goes on top. So I've been whipping this cream cheese together just by hand. Now I'm going to add a little bit of buttermilk to that, and confectioner's sugar. We're just making just a little simple glaze to go on top. And you might also want to add a little bit of vanilla extract, but honestly, if you really love a nice cream cheese icing, that's the flavor that's going to pick up the most in this glaze, is that cream cheese flavor. So just a little bit more of this. These, as I said to you, when they baked up, they're just, we were kind of talking yesterday in the test kitchen about, some people call them sticky buns, some people call them sweet rolls, some people call them cinnamon rolls, and we were thinking that maybe bun meant yeast and roll meant the fact that we've not used any yeast to make these. All right, so I'm going to let that sit for just a minute and kind of dissolve a little bit while I move on to these sausage balls that we pulled out of the oven. And you see they're just nice and golden brown. But this little batch over here is the ones that we did yesterday in our test kitchen. So what I've done and what I talked about while we were doing this was that you can reheat any that are left over. So these were left over from yesterday. I've just put them in a saucepan, and this is where my pecan ridge oil comes in so handy. Their pecan oil, it is absolutely delicious. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that and just sprinkle a little bit on the top and just enough in the pan. So instead of putting these in the oven, this pecan oil is going to give these a nice nutty flavor, and you've reheated it all the way through. So I'm going to let those heat up. And then the two sauces that we made to go with it, the mustard sauce and then the maple butter sauce, really are going to be so delicious with these. Okay, let's just smear this all over these cinnamon buns. Oh my goodness, the kids are going to love these, and I got to tell you, I've got some men in my family that are going to have a fit over this as well. The more the better, right, on this glaze? All right, so let's just see what one of these looks like. Oh, wow. Look how nice and gooey and yummy that's going to be. Absolutely delicious. I can't wait to try one. Okay, now the quiche, when it came out of the oven, just beautiful, and like I said, it kind of dies back down. But the beauty of this is you can heat it up by the slice. So what I did in my steam oven was I sliced a slice the size that I wanted it. I put it in the steam oven, and you hit mode to reheat. And then depending on the size of the slice, it could be anywhere from 4 minutes to 8 minutes to get it nice and fluffy. And then I've done different things that you can put on top. The sauteed mushrooms, spinach, cheddar cheese, whatever you'd like to do there on that. And then as you saw me today, just drinking my tea along the way. There's nothing, I love tea in the mornings. So when you're in Fresh Market, pick up the Earl Supreme. I love their Harney & Sons brand of that. That's generally what I drink as far as my tea goes. So we've got breakfast morning all situated. I want you to try these recipes, whether it's just for the family or just for yourself, or ask the neighbors to join you one morning. And I hope you'll come back again with me next week for another episode of the Very Vera Show. But I'm going to dive into a little bit of this because it's going to be delicious. Come back and join me next week.